Oh, geez.
Welcome back to A Celtic State of Mind. I'm Paul John Dykes. This afternoon I'm joined by Lawrence Connolly. We're going to try and bring Ian Conroy into the discussion and Liam Carrigan as well. Can you hear us, Ian? Can you hear us loud and clear? Is it all working at your side? Unfortunately, you're silent. You've been muted. The gremlins are already trying to stop us from talking, Lawrence, because there is a sense, a growing sense of frustration in and amongst a lot of the people who were on our stream last night. And by the way, it's a decent cross-section because at one point we were over 16,000 live, all frustrated, talking about where did it all go wrong, who's to blame, Lawrence. It's not about, what we need to get away from this spoilt entitled chat. It's not about that. It's about going into a transfer window with more money than you've ever had before in the bank, with a manager who's at a level and a profile who should be able to, speak to players, potential signings, Lawrence, convince them, impress them, share a vision with them to bring them to the football club, both pre and post European exit. That's not happened. And we were left quite embarrassed, I think. We were left scrambling about last night to the point where, and we'll go through it bit by bit. I'm just going to get your overall view of the window as a whole, Lawrence Connolly.
So I'm probably going to go back to August last year, mate. Heavily rumoured Kyogo wants to leave. And we managed to keep him. We get to the winter transfer window and he leaves. We bring in Jota, a cut price from what compared we sold him to. At that stage, we're trying to get KT. We know Greg Taylor, the manager, wants to give him a new contract. Instead, we pay a loan fee out in Jeffrey Sloop. You get this transfer window still needing a replacement in Kyogo. Balak was told the first week of July the fee was agreed. Mm-hmm. But we couldn't agree personal terms until we went out of the Champions League. Ridiculous. We've been needing a replacement for Kyogo. We've known it's been in the post for 12 months. Dolberg could have been a great player. Why wasn't it done last week? Why did we wait? Over the weekend, there's injuries at Chelsea. They're calling guys back to Sunderland. Sunderland go out and buy Ajax's player that quickly, mate. That quickly, there's a club that can
push the button. Push the button.
Get it done. What have we done? Messed about. You miss out on Dolberg. You're left with practically nobody. You're now signing as many left wingers have we got? Oh, they can play everywhere. They can play across the front three. They just don't play in the right line very often. Why is that? And
precisely.
They could both be going to the African Cup of Nations, and we've still not got a Kyogo replacement. Never mind, I need a replacement. Mate, in that debacle, we're not going to sell him until somebody comes in. Who gave permission for him to go to Swansea in the first place last week? Where did that come from? Who recalled him? Yeah. What is it going on at the club? Do they know what they're doing? It seems that we can sell players, but bring players in that the manager wants. Many of these guys were on the transfer list that Brendan submitted and agreed to.
How many of them were scouted? How many of them were profiled, Lawrence?
See when you look at the guys coming early in the season, KT, I don't think he's a game as good as Greg Taylor would have played so far. You've got the two Japanese boys that Brendan didn't seem to know much about, but were able to get those deals done.
I'll have
just
a look.
The players Brendan wants, it doesn't seem that they can get in that quickly.
Yeah, that's interesting, isn't it? That really is interesting.
So it looks like deliberate, and Brendan's, up until last week, it was pretty clear he was unhappy. And then he comes out and says, "Oh, everything's brilliant, we're all connected." Doesn't look that way, Brendan. You wanted a striker. You could have done with him for Champions League qualifying. You're saying all summer we need guys to create chances and take chances. And we've closed the window with what? No striker.
Well,
we're going to be made up front. Listen, Nisbet goes to Aberdeen for 300,000. I would say he's better than Shin, he's better than Kenny, and he's better than Osmond.
What would say to that?
We could have bought that would improve where we are just now, and we didn't get them.
We didn't get them, Lawrence. There's a lot to unpack from that, so I'm going to go through it bit by bit. I'm going to start off with Brendan Rodgers, Lawrence, right? Because the mixed messages that we're getting, often, Ian, you can imagine, having to deliver a message for a business or a company that you're employed by. And even though it goes against the grain and it goes against your instincts, Ian, but you do it anyway because you think it's for the better good. And I think that Brendan Rodgers did that last week. And we've already heard in the last month or so how, actually I'll go right back to when we clinched the league last season, and he did a bit of an extended interview on the park with Jackie McNamara and Chris Sutton. Don't know if you remember it. And he was going on about, people don't know me. People think they know me, but they don't, and all this kind of stuff. Because certain individuals, myself included, dare to have an opinion on things. I don't claim to know Brendan Rodgers, but I listen to every single press conference he does when he's representing Celtic, Ian, and I can come to a conclusion based on the information that I'm presented with, based on the style of football that I watch every single minute of. And I'm, as a Celtic fan, merely giving an opinion on that. So very, very guarded when he wants to be, and then he's delivering a message on behalf of someone else, clearly, last week. And when I seen that interview, Ian, at that point, I had a bit of an uneasy feeling going into the transfer window, because what I felt at that point, Ian, was that there's a battle for control, right? And it's based on egos, it's based on narcissism, all these different things, right? There's a battle for control at Celtic right now, and the control was given back to those who make the decisions last week, because Brendan Rodgers bowed down and said what they wanted him to say. We're all connected here. Absolute nonsense. There's a complete disconnect. And if they're all connected, Ian, Brendan Rodgers included, with Michael Nicholson and Peter Lawwell and Dermot Desmond and all the other stooges that do nothing else than just fill in the blanks when it comes to the boardroom table, if they're all connected, maybe it's us, the only element of Celtic that are disconnected to the rest of the football club, Ian, and that's even worse.
Yeah. I mean, you look at. I was just had a sort of skim read of of like fallen empires, and one of the main reasons for a lot of these empires was poor internal governance. They got so big, and again, we use the term echo chamber quite a lot, but that is what this board is. And I mean, I was saying in the group chat the other day, I think this is my third pre-season on Acsom, and I've been saying the same thing, and I know a lot of people have been saying the same thing. It's the same problems. You trace it right back. It's Dermot Desmond, and again, he identifies and puts these people in place. Dermot Desmond has to go, and he's got to take Peter Lawwell and Michael Nicholson with him. That's the only way we're going to get change. But we've said it in the past as well. Kev Graham said it really succinctly, and I agree with him. We're sleepwalking into, getting knocked off our perch for sure. We're sleepwalking towards a cliff. The mixed messages, it's why you have to resort to that in a professional environment. I have no idea. In any other industry, have you got to do that? It's ridiculous. It's a pantomime, and the fact that we're actually talking about that and giving it kind of credence, speaks volumes. It speaks absolute volumes. Now, I don't claim to know Brendan Rodgers or anyone that works at Celtic, and like you say, we can only look at and kind of analyse with the ingredients we're given. Every press conference, every team selection. Now, Brendan Rodgers, I think he has been sold a dummy. I think he kind of pretty found that out sort of quite early on into his tenure, with the way that the transfer windows have been going. But watching the game on Sunday, and it has really been since the Bayern Munich game. We don't change tactics. We change tactics defensively against Atalanta to good results after we got stuffed by Dortmund. So he can do it, but why he refuses to do it? That game was turgid on Sunday. I was embarrassed, absolutely embarrassed. A lot of the players, they're stale. Maeda sold the jersey for me, and I said it in the group chat, and a lot of people didn't believe me. Looked like he was trying not to get injured. Looked like he wasn't trying. And that's his game. If Dyson doesn't try, that's the main part of his attributes. So there was a lot of people off it. It's predictable. It's turgid. It's the same as the last time he was here in the third season. I love Brendan Rodgers. I'm not trying to diss the guy, but like I said some weeks ago about Michael Nicholson, your role in a senior business, when you're a senior manager like Brendan Rodgers, like Michael Nicholson is, part of your remit is to manage upwards and to push back and tell.
Absolutely.
If you don't ask your bosses for what you need, and then you fail, you've got no complaints.
No.
If you put it out there and say this is exactly what I need to do my job, give me the tools and I'll do the job. If they don't support you and back you, at least it's documented. But so if that's happening, I suppose if I was Brendan Rodgers, I'd resign. I'd leave, because it's a poison chalice. But again, that the poor internal governance is the sort of phrase that really sort of resonates. it's been going on for far too long, and I'm not being reactionary. I've been saying the same thing for 3 years personally, and I know lots of other people have been saying the same thing on this platform. They have to go. If you cared about Celtic, like you claim you do, then go. You look at the commitment that Dermot Desmond has put in is a fraction of his wealth, right? It's a plaything for him. You look at the commitment that fans, every ordinary fan, put in every year for a season book. I'm sure that's a massive part of their yearly income. It's a massive commitment. The money that we're asked to put in their pockets for extra tickets, for merchandise that people can ill afford, but they have to keep up, for their children, because they love their children. We all love our children, and we want to give it our children. You don't want your children to suffer, or to sort of stick out or not have what everyone else has got. And everyone's in that same cycle. So that the commitment that the fans give every year on year, is far greater than any of these really wealthy people ever will do. They're not feeling it, the pinch, like we are. And if you cared about Celtic, fall on your sword and go.
They're not feeling the pinch, Ian, but they're not feeling the disappointment that certainly I'm feeling, the frustration that Lawrence is feeling. And I'm not going to speak for anybody else, but I'm pretty sure there are many others within the chat group feeling the same way. And there's anger coming into it, and it's boiling over. And
I would say the reason they don't feel disappointment, this looks like it's deliberate what they've done. This looks like their plan.
What's their end game then, Lawrence, in your view?
Well, they're obviously a struggle with Brendan. Brendan's come out and said there's people that don't like him at the football club.
Absolutely.
What does that mean? People would rather he wasn't there. Who would rather that Brendan Rodgers wasn't there? What are our most successful managers? Who would rather?
There's your question, Lawrence. There's your question right now. I'll take you back, Brendan, to when you said this. What did you mean by it? There you go.
Yeah.
Explain that.
People that would rather you weren't here, Brendan.
Absolutely.
Why aren't your targets getting delivered? Who negotiates the deals? We know the football side handed over the lists week of the cup final. What's been happening since the end of May?
It's ridiculous. I'm going to bring Liam in. Great to see you, Liam, as always. Perfectly attired. You go into a dressing room before you come onto Acsom to pick one of your many jerseys. And I
couldn't find my Tunisia shirt. I was genuinely looking for it before I came on.
Yeah. When was the last time that got an airing? Now, in relation to this, I was talking to Ian just before you came on, Liam, and I was talking about this power for control, the struggle rather for control at Celtic. We've seen it last time round. It got really, really toxic, and Brendan Rodgers walked. And looking back, had he not walked right into the tailored Leicester City suit, you might have been left wondering completely, your view might have been completely different on that in relation to what's gone wrong. Everything was blame Brendan, and that happened, and that left a stain on, for me, his legacy for a long time. And part of him coming back, and he said this at his first press conference, was to mend his legacy, right? So he's come back, and then he's faced with the same issues, very, very similar issues anyway, where, I remember him talking about being presented with players, and the way he described it when he came back is he was asking for players at this end of the scale, and he was getting players presented to him from this end of the scale, which meant it was just impossible for him to do the job he wanted to do, and he walked. Last week, he comes out and it's basically the meme of Homer Simpson going back into the hedge. That was Brendan Rodgers last week, right? And he's like, we're all connected, everything's great, everybody's working around the clock, and all this kind of stuff. At that moment, in my view, Liam, he lost the transfer window. At that moment, the club could do whatever they want, and the people doing the deals have been promoted way above their abilities to work at this football club. And it's them, for me, that need to go.
Call me cynical, but we don't have a home game for 3.5 weeks. The board were well aware of that going into this transfer window. And for the last, as long as I can remember, their strategy has always been, anytime there's a flashpoint between the fans and the board, whether it's over the Green Brigade, whether it's over the results on the park, whether it's over transfers, whatever, their response is always ignore it until it goes away. So they know they've got 3 weeks for us all to calm down. And they think we're stupid enough that in 3 weeks we will calm down and it'll be forgotten about. And what they were probably hoping for was that we would have gubbed Rangers on Sunday, and then a lot of the fan base would have forgot about it, because the delusion that we can just continue the way we are and we'll keep winning everything in sight in Scotland would have continued.
Elaine, but how bad were we on Sunday? Exactly. Were more of an attacking threat against Rangers than we were.
Yeah.
A lot.
Absolutely. And that's the thing. I think that now I'm not going to speak for Brendan because I don't know the guy, right? But you watch that game on Sunday, you watch how we performed recently, even the games that we've won. Sunday was a clash between a manager who increasingly, it seems, doesn't want to be here because he's not being treated properly, and a manager who should never have been there in the first place. And that showed on the park with both teams and their display.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, both teams were rotten. I think Kevin Graham described it as two bald men fighting over a comb. That was basically the level of entertainment, Liam.
Yeah.
Rangers have come out and backed the manager, even though he doesn't look capable of the job. You can't accuse them of not giving him the tools.
No, they have, Lawrence. They have. They absolutely have. Yeah. I mean, my absolute focus last night and this morning was on, trying to unwrap what's been going on here and unpack it. And that's what I've done. But I have had a cursory glance over it, the other transfer dealings that have been going on. Not only at Ibrox, by the way, Lawrence, there has been ambition shown by Aberdeen, Hearts and Hibs this season as well. And, in many, many ways, there's this thought process. And I can understand why people, I don't think it's conspiratorial. There's a thought process that there are certain people at the football club who don't mind being closer to the domestic challenge than we should.
Tell you what, if it's a conspiracy, why have the last 4 or 5 managers come out and said, we don't do transfers in the proper way? We don't do them. Are those 5 in on it, saying, like, let's add fuel to this conspiracy. Let's just slag off the way Celtic do transfer, the way our bosses are doing them.
And also, what I would say, Lawrence, right? So you've got Rodgers second time round, you've got Ange, right? Prior to Ange, you've got Lenny second time round, the coach you're talking about, and before him, you've got Ronnie. Quotes maybe are not online, but we, as Acsom, have spoken to people who were working alongside Neil Lennon, i.e. Johan Mjallby, who said similar, and we have spoken to Peter Grant, who worked alongside Tony Mowbray. So you can go further back, Lawrence, you can go even further back than that.
Players getting sold without Mowbray knowing.
Yeah, absolutely. And bought and sold.
Yeah.
Bought and sold. Yeah, absolutely. I'm really keen. The thing is, right?
Strachan walks in and padding the courts there. Who's that?
That's you know
guy.
What? If it was so ridiculous, you would laugh about it. You're right. I mean, we've heard that story firsthand. He thought that somebody had brought their brother to work. It was one of the bring your sibling to work day. Somebody has won a competition. Who's this guy? And it's Paddy McCourt. Unbelievable. Bought by Dermot Desmond. Confirmed by Paddy himself. Direct from source. There's somebody who is a non-executive director buying players for Celtic. I'm pretty sure Robbie Keane was the same, but we'd need to speak to him about that. I'm really keen to bring in the comments from the audience because last night, yesterday, all week, and since we started, you're there and you're always there, and I mean that. So I want to focus on your frustrations. What are you thinking about this? Because we're going to get opportunities, all us guys. We're going to get opportunities to unpack this for weeks and months now. I'm going to start off with Nathan Watson on the YouTube. Celts for Change Part 2. I like the sound of that. Think all supporters groups should get together and unite against the board. Now, I'm going to go around the room on this one. Start with yourself, Lawrence, right? Something has to happen. I don't know what it looks like, right? And when we look back on what happened last time round, it's very, and I hate the term ordinarily, but it's a good descriptive term for what happened. It was very organic because it wasn't just somebody woke up with the answer, Lawrence. It happened in the early days with Save Our Celts, which was led by Willie Wilson and Jim Orr and others. That ran its course, and then we had Celts for Change. Celts for Change were in, they were in conversation constantly and liaison with David Lowe and Fergus McCann. It all came together over a period of time, over a number of years, incidentally, Lawrence. It just didn't happen overnight. You would think at the moment, when you look at all the groups that exist, let's say ultra groups, you've got an association and affiliation, and unless somebody in the comment section can tell me otherwise, I don't see what they do for the fan groups other than sort tickets for supporters clubs. I don't see what else they do. They're not a voice for the fans. The ultras make protests and make comments, etc. And there's loads of Celtic fans says they're not the voice of us. So you've got a lot of fragmentation now, Lawrence. You've then got the podcasters and the bloggers and the vloggers and all this kind of stuff, right? And I think one of the things that, and you've got the fanzine guys. I mean, we had the Not the View boys on last week, Lawrence. So there's lots and lots of different groups. And I like the idea of a coming together. You've got the Celtic Trust as well, of course. A coming together under one banner and say, right, let's represent the Celtic supporters here. Let's collectively have one voice.
So see on the organic stuff, I mean, I must have 30, 40 texts or WhatsApp message or combination of whatever saying people cancelling their home ticket schemes.
Seen it all over Twitter.
Europe, everywhere. Tonight, Gracie's 7 o'clock, Celtic Trust. You know, there needs to be a different way. And, you know, but Brendan Rodgers is probably as good a manager as we can get. And he's been forced out of the club. Who by? We don't know. Yeah, twice. You know, but we're all speculating, aren't we? It's the non-football side. We don't think, probably not Dermot, he's brought him in. So who is it? Who's not doing the deals? Who doesn't want the manager to be there? Listen, I'd have more respect for Brendan if he came out and said, look, I'm working a really difficult situation here. I'm identifying the targets, and there's people on the other side of the deal, X, Y, and Z, that are failing to get deals done. Put your questions to them about transfers, because I've done my bit. These are the guys not doing the deals.
Is it time, Lawrence, on that point? I think it's a very good point, because we've seen it during COVID where Neil Lennon was sent out every day to answer all the questions, and it wasn't just football-related questions. It was what was happening with the Scottish government. It was what was happening with buses. It was what was happening with ball and golly. Lenny got the whole lot, and I felt sorry for him during that period. You know, regardless of what you think about how it ended.
Under tremendous pressure.
Absolutely.
And he didn't need extra pressure. He should have been left to do the football side.
He was chucked under the bus, Lawrence, let's be honest here. And they've done the same with Brendan. Because a lot of this stuff, Brendan's tried to answer questions. And quite, I'm speculating. He said his knuckles wrapped. Because that was a different, that was an AI Brendan last week. Coming in just delivering a company message.
I don't think anyone watched that and thought, Brendan's happy giving this message. This is the truth. You know, no way. Listen, last night, everybody's digging up old clips. I think it was 11 years ago, 14 years ago, Peter Lawwell, after a similar transfer window, said, I don't know how much more we can do. The criticism's over the top. We invest every penny in the team. We can't invest more than every penny. Why have we got £100 million in the bank and no first choice striker to put in the park?
I know.
And what he kept saying is, let's move on.
Let's move on. We don't want to face it. Let's just move on.
Let's move on.
You know, we're really rich. We've won all the trophies, Ian. Let's stop asking me the difficult questions.
So last Christmas, last transfer window, he came out and said, we understand keeping the money in the bank isn't good. So what we're going to do, evidently, is we're going to do it again and add more money. Mm-hmm. What if we turn profit 20 million or something?
Yeah, with the sell-ons, 20 million quid, yeah.
So
just in one window.
Good. Listen, we can't have 5 or 6 class managers saying Celtic don't do transfers right. You've got other players weighing in now, Benji Siegrist.
I know.
You know, the story of Nicholson not answering his phone, but that would tie up with how McGinn deal didn't get done. John McGinn's agents in Birmingham phoning Celtic Park, can't get anyone to answer the phone. Benji Siegrist said, oh, that's what put my move out. Is that the way we operate? Just patch their calls.
You see the thing, Lauren, see on that note, right, we've all heard the Yang chat, right? We've all heard the audio file that's been shared and shared and shared, and everybody's trying to figure out who it is that's talking, right? We've all heard it. And it does exist in this world where people who are very well connected to various individuals who are in at Celtic or who work with Celtic sometimes put information out there so that you can actually discuss it. They want that message out there.
Listen, Thursday, we get permission to speak to Milowski. He's at Rangers. Now, was that because Brendan wanted him 18 months ago and we didn't get him done? Did somebody say, oh, we'll get him now? What happened there? You know, we've ended up with no striker.
No, and you're right. You're right, Lawrence, and I believe at the time, Miovski had been scouted for something like 6 months. We had been scouting him pretty closely for 6 months prior to him leaving Aberdeen.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah, we wouldn't pay the fee. We wouldn't pay the fee. Right. The manager wanted to pay it. The manager said he was worth it. Mm-hmm. The football side said, nah, he's not. Oh, sorry. The non-football side said he's not worth it.
We're not giving Aberdeen that kind of money. So we're in that scenario, and we've all heard this story around Yang. If that is indeed the case, Lawrence, what's the rest of the suits doing? Right? So you've got the CEO, right? So he conducts the business, right? The CEO. And you've got the finance officer. So he's the guy that's doing the paperwork and organising the deals and the money side of it, right? That's fine. Above them, you have the budget. Who's setting the budget, right? Because it's not obviously the CEO that's doing that. What's the rest of the board doing? Because if the problem is arising from the non-answering of a phone call, Ian, and you're in an office full of people and the phone's ringing and nobody's answering it because you're too busy, Surely your system is absolutely broken beyond repair.
Well,
If you
too busy to answer a call that's going to put £3 million in for
in your bank,
the manager says isn't good enough.
precisely, Lawrence. So at what point can that phone no ping to the next contact and get picked up? What was the rest of the board doing last night, Ian? What were they doing? They wouldn't have been at Celtic frantically getting deals done. And I just think there's a joint responsibility. We focus on the heads of these departments, etc. Michael Nicholson will or should be the fall guy. Do you think the club are bold enough, Ian, for someone actually to pay the price? Or are you going to go back to that Peter Lawwell interview where it was almost as if, what are you all talking about? As if we were talking a different language to him.
Well, let's go back to the 10 in a row, where again it was poor internal governance. We should have had that wrapped up. Who cares? I mean, whether I was 10 in a row, I wasn't really fussed about. It would have been nice to have, but who really cares? Peter Lawwell fell on his sword, or so we thought, but it was all a ruse. It was a ruse, a political ruse. And then he walks back in through the door as chairman. Hey guys, I'm back. The dust is settled. Here I am. So if Nicholson or someone else is asked to leave, or he's chucked under the bus, or whatever it might be, who's to say that he's not going to come back into some other capacity? Because he's part of the cabal, and that's let's be honest, that's what it is. It's a cabal. Dermot Desmond, very powerful man. I admire him for many things that he's done for Celtic, but it's tired, it's stale. If you love Celtic, go, because you're the problem, and it's your people. You need to take your people with you, because it's culture.
And the culture starts at the very top.
Yeah, so you do. There's a kind of a saying, I'm sort of paraphrasing, but like, if you do something once, it's an action. If you do something regularly, it's a behaviour. If you do something all the time, it's a culture. Sadly for us, we do this all the time. Thing we do is creating a poor culture, and what we want is the reverse of that. We want a good culture that considers the fans, that considers Celtic. Like, the Native Americans, where they don't consider any decision they make unless it considers the next 2 or 3 generations.
Yeah,
that's care, that's love. That's not what we're getting from this board. That's not what we're getting from Dermot Desmond. And like I said before, I can't emphasise enough the commitment of the fans, every person in the street, everyone who supports Celtic. The commitment they make puts them closer into financial strife than it ever will for Dermot Desmond or his employees. So they get paid handsomely. Their salaries and bonuses don't go down every season, and every price increase that we are footing for is paying them. Paying them for what? For malpractice? Well, I'll say malpractice maybe, but it's incompetence. It's incompetence or it's dereliction of duty. Either one is unforgivable. Please go.
It is, Ian, and you're talking about salaries that are not a kick in the backside of 900 grand a year when we're talking about the CEO. I'm going to bring this up because I think the best word for it, because it's ever present, it's omni-shambles. Jay Conley, Jay Larkin. Omni-shambles over summer. Our needs are not far off what they were this time last year. A quality ball playing centre half, an athletic, physical defensive midfielder, a class right winger, a goal scoring forward. And when you talk about the omni-shambles that is our transfer window, what's starting to happen, Liam, unfortunately, for the club and for the fans, is that it's spreading into the knowledge of other football clubs, the knowledge of other directors, players, agents, and that doesn't bode well for us attracting new players in the future. I think when we started doing a Celtic State of Mind 8 years ago, I was surprised at the amount of people who never ever wanted you to criticise the club, right? And I think in time, I've started to understand why they felt you were criticising the club. We're not criticising Celtic. We love Celtic. That's what binds us together. We're criticising the board of directors who are currently at Celtic Park. We're criticising a guy who's got 34.7% of the shareholding, but who runs the football club like a plaything, like he owns it. He can just buy Paddy McCourt and Robbie Keane if he fancies it, and they just turn up at training. Now, that is what we are criticising. We're not criticising Celtic. We're not criticising that. That is the ever-present. That is the omnipresent force, which is Celtic. And the only other thing within Celtic that's omnipresent, Liam, is the fan base. Ian's talking about the commitment of the fans. What about the Irish fans? Add all the cost of travel, all the cost of accommodation on top of everything else that you pay as a season ticket holder. And that's your Irish fan base. And I'll tell you something, you know, there will be some really, really wealthy people amongst it, I'm sure. But generally speaking, you're talking about working class people, Liam, who are putting they don't have deep pockets and they're constantly putting their hands in them for Celtic. And you've got a board of directors. That's who we're criticising here, not the club. It's the board of directors.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, again, I'm not going to speak for all Celtic fans, but I'll speak for myself, right? I changed jobs last year, as we all know. And I went through a period of financial hardship. At no point was I like, okay, I'm going to cancel Celtic TV. It was like, what do I have to do? What else do I have to give up to make sure I keep following Celtic? And that is a kind of a microcosm of how it is for every Celtic fan out there who hits a financial buffer at some point in their life. It's never, all right, I can't go to Celtic games anymore. It's like, okay, what do I give up? What other sacrifice do I make? It's not even a question of should you do it. It's what am I going to do and how am I going to do it? And that's the thing that this board do not appreciate. And the other thing is, which I wrote a blog on this today for anyone who's interested. Previously, you could say, well, if it's a purely money thing, if it's a purely financial, you know, it's just business, whatever, fine. They're not even doing that properly anymore. At one point yesterday, Celtic's share price was down by nearly 15% because of the utterly chaotic way that final day of the transfer window was being managed. What was initially one aspect of the football club not working properly has now been allowed to grow and, I would say, rot to the point where it is now a question of corporate governance, right? If you are a shareholder in Celtic of any standing, right now you should say, these people that are running the club are not doing it in my best interest as a shareholder. It's corporate negligence. That is what we're getting to now. It's not just about they don't care about the fans. It's not just about they only care about money. Even the money side of it is in the toilet now because of this utter incompetence that has been allowed to run rampant. And as usual, like I said, they've got 3 weeks before they're going to face any kind of scrutiny, and they'll just throw Brendan Rodgers to the dogs like they always do.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Just turn the PA system up.
Sorry, Lons?
We'll just turn the PA system up.
Yeah, like they did with the sack the board chance, absolutely. As I say, I'm really keen to... On you go. Sorry,
Lons. Wages, right? When Martin O'Neill was here 20 years ago, the CEO was earning about half of what he earns just now. Mm-hmm. The player wages, 3 wage bands, 5 grand to 20. Sorry, 20 to 30, 30 to 40. We've got the same wage bands after 20 years. We've only got, I think we had 8 people in the top wage band 20 years ago. We've now got 4. Mm-hmm. We're paying less wages than we were 20 years ago to players. 3 weeks ago, they contacted an agent, hadn't dealt with them in ages. Agent's really happy to hear from them, might make some money here. Celtic want a game-changing winger. We'll pay up to 25 grand a week. And the guy said, I can't help you. For what you want to pay and the player you want, it's not out there. The agent's walking away and saying, I can't make money because I can't deliver on your parameters. And Mark Law, whether you liked him or not, part of the reason was that he walked away and goes, I can't get the players in they want for what the transfer fees they want to pay and the wages they want to pay. But at the end of a transfer window, I think the Antwerp boy was our number 1 target. Outside of that, were any of them targets? Many of them heavily scouted. You know, Dollarberg, if they wanted that deal done, they could have done it last week.
They could have done it. They could have done it.
The money was there. Just, they weren't motivated enough to do it. Is it because it was a player Brendan wanted and not one that they wanted?
Well, that you start wondering because of the dysfunction, because of this lack of connection. There is a disconnect, whether they want to deny it or not, Lawrence, in amongst the various departments, be that football versus non-football departments. There is definitely a disconnect in there. And if he's not going to get the players that he wants, and this is the thing I have said time and time again, what history will show is that Brendan will simply feel no obligation to play the players that he's presented with. And that's an issue. We could be facing a season now where people were saying to me last night, we signed 10 players. What more do you want? But that's bad business. If the manager isn't going to play them, if the manager isn't going to play a lot of these guys, at the weekend there, we're still relying on Jamesy Forrest. In the European game, we're still relying on Jamesy Forrest. It's back to the same well. I made the point that, in the 5 transfer windows that Brendan Rodgers has been at the football club, you look at the Kairat home leg, only 4 players started that game that were purchased by Brendan Rodgers. Only 4 players in 5 transfer windows. And that shows you the disconnect between the non-football department signing off deals for players that Brendan's not okayed and doesn't actually want, doesn't rate. And he showed it with Nawrocki. There was moments where you're tearing your hair out. Why is he not playing Nawrocki? He'll not play him. Marvin Compere, first time round, wouldn't play him. He played 1 game. Right, Marky boy, you're in. For the first time in my 42 years supporting Celtic, I'm utterly disgusted, angry, and fallen out massively with my club. All I would say, Marky, fall out with the board. Fall out with the board. That's what you should do. We've got Brido. Thanks for supporting the channel. My dad got me my first season ticket in '97. Been going ever since. First time I am thinking about not buying any Cup Europe tickets, not giving this board any more of my money. Lawrence, I'm going to ask you the question and then we'll run around the room with this one as well. We're a Scottish football club who seem happy and content just being the big dog in Glasgow. That's what the club are telling me if you're thinking about the board's lack of ambition, right? We've got 100 million quid in the bank. Why? Simple question. Why have we got that money in the bank?
There's 3 parts to the club: the fans, the manager, and the board. 2 parts of that aren't happy with that. It would just appear that the board's happy with it. The manager's on record saying he wants world-class football. He wants to be the very best. Michael Nicholson says we want to be world-class in everything we do. Was that transfer window world-class? Was it even basic? It didn't even get pass marks. Ridiculous. Why have we got 100 million in the bank? It's a secret, mate. They're not going to tell us.
That was this window. What about last one? The last one and the one before that. I know we overpaid for Adam Ida and Engels, but a poor window follows a poor window follows a poor window. Ange broke the mold a little bit because he did what he should have done, which is he pushed back. He pushed back. They just brought him in the door. They were embarrassed by losing it on Eddie Howe and didn't have a plan B, and he had all the power, and thank goodness we got him at the time we got him. But again, you go back to those 11 years, it's poor window after poor window. We fumble and stumble into just mediocrity.
And the thing with this now is we're facing a campaign. And again, I'm always really stressing this point. I'm not speaking for everybody here, but there's loads of fans unhappy, right? Going into we're still early we're only in September. Loads of fans unhappy. Loads of fans echoing some of the recent comments there saying, I'm not buying the European tickets. I'm not buying the home cup tickets. I'm not buying merchandise. I've heard a lot of that kind of stuff, right? I'm spending not a penny once I walk in the door. Already bought the season ticket. I'm hearing a lot of these grumblings, right? We've got a manager who's clearly unhappy, and he'll come out and say, "You don't know me." Well, we just need to look at your mood. We just need to look at how that then transfers into the mood and the lack of bounce and the staleness of your team, because there's no energy. There's no energy in that team whatsoever. And we're looking at that now, thinking, right, how are you going to integrate these new players into that side? New players that you may or may not have actually signed off yourself. Tony McCutcheon's in. I paid for my season ticket already, but apart from that, the club are not getting another penny from me, says Tony. No European games, League Cup games, Scottish Cup games, merchandise, catering, nothing. And the big question, of course, is what can we do next? Simon Fedeni says, I'm not angry, I'm disappointed. And we've also got Paul McLean coming in to say the events of the last 2 weeks have proven beyond doubt that we are not a big club. We are not a draw for the big players when someone would rather go to Charlton than Celtic. Well, the way that I looked at it was someone earlier on, I think it was Jay Conley, Jay Larkin, said Omni Shambles. I tried this morning to put it down in a blow-by-blow account, and this is what I came up with. The Champions League exit in Munich and the Scottish Cup final, right, were an end result, in my view, and we've spoken about this, of the January window, the lack of ambition in the January window, and failing to replace Kyogo. Rodgers made his demands clear. I remember it on the pitch after the game against Bayern Munich. He's standing there, I need more quality. He wasn't quite begging at this stage, but he put the message out. The Scottish Cup final came along, and it showed that we were lacking in many, many areas. And it was a reminder to the board that they needed a reminder to get the job done. Jota was injured and he's not been replaced. Massive loss to Celtic, particularly going into the qualifiers. Kuhn wasn't kept for the qualifiers, a point made time and time again by Chris Sutton whenever he gets a platform to make the point. Keep him for the qualifiers, get through to the Champions League, and if he needs to be sold, sell him then. Failing to strengthen the squad. What I mean by that is the left-back situation. Greg Taylor, 6 years at the football club, decorated player. We wouldn't give him what he wanted. But what we did do is we went and bought Alex Baye on loan, short-termism from Barcelona. We cut that deal short. We bring in Jeffrey Schlupp on loan from Crystal Palace. He leaves at the end of the season. And we bring in Sarachi, short-termism. Not one of those guys is going to play for Celtic long-term. So we failed to strengthen the squad. We chased, very much like Eddie Howe, we chased Fitzgarden. 2 years we chased him, right? Targeted him for 2 years. And we apparently didn't even know about the release clause in his deal. What were we doing for 2 years? We've been called out by Benji Siegrist, who was having a good laugh at us last night on Instagram again, the Go Ahead Eagles director, who said that maybe we should take a leaf out of Rangers books. And he stopped that quote by laughing at us. Ha ha, he says. Now, Rodgers comes out and starts criticising the board. But then he's obviously had his knuckles wrapped because last week he comes out and he's delivering the message for the football club. Adamida to Swansea, debacle. Stephen Welsh to Plymouth Argyle, absolute debacle. Yang to Birmingham, broke down. He might go out to Belgian football because their window's still open. Tilio, we had to put Tilio in cold storage because of the Rapid Vienna deal, debacle. The short-termism of bringing in JSP and Sarachi. I mean, why are we bringing in other teams' players without an option to buy? Ida has to stay at the football club, says Brendan Rodgers, right, until we get a replacement in. Our deal for Kasper Dolberg breaks down, but we sell Ida anyway. Absolute nonsense. We were knocked back by Dolberg. No, we were knocked back by him first, then for Fana, who's away to Charlton. That's a better option than Celtic because we're a basket case. We needed a right winger. We brought in 2 left wingers. Brilliant. And then finally, we bring out Rodgers Rolodex. I think it was christened by Ian Conroy. The Rodgers Rolodex comes out and we buy an overweight guy who, if you were to look at his performances for Middlesbrough, you'd be thinking to yourself, he's 34 years of age. He's only 28. But because he's free, he doesn't have a contract, we'll be interested in him. And across all of that, Liam Carrigan, we make £20 million profit in this window alone, which just so happens to be the differential between Champions League and Europa League football. It's all been a plan all along, Liam.
Yep. And again, you know, if we had proper journalism in Scotland, I think that there would be a massive exclusive in the making for whoever can dig into the records and the files, because they are out there, to show just who exactly is pulling the strings behind these investment funds that have like 15% shares in Celtic. And why do they always unconditionally side with Dermot Desmond to give him the power of an owner when he is not an owner? There's a story there for someone who's willing to put the work in.
There absolutely is a story, and nobody will question it within the football club. And I think what you said earlier on, Liam, in relation to all the shareholders, if you were one of these, I remember when Fergus McCann came to the football club, and I remember 2 big things that were never a consideration for a 15-year-old boy, which I was at the time. First one was you would actually be able to get a season ticket for Celtic. It was never promoted. You never used to buy the Celtic Views, Lawrence, and, you know, they were promoting season tickets. They didn't want you to be that entitled to have a season ticket, right? They had 6,000 season ticket holders when Fergus McCann took over in 1994. But he started pushing it because his view was coming from Canadian sports. He had a lot of knowledge from the Canadian sports. And his idea was, how can I plan a budget when I don't know how many bums are going to be on seats? So he started selling season tickets. I signed up. 95 quid was how much my season ticket cost. It came in a nice wee wallet with a picture and everything on it for ID. Right, and it had ticket stubs, like a raffle book that you would pull out. And you got all the cup games free. And you got friendlies against Flamengo and Blackburn Rovers free. And you're going to these games at the age of 15, right, on the old supporters bus. And then he tried to sell everybody shares. And I remember looking at it. And I spoke to Duncan Smiley last week about this. I think the price, correct me if I'm wrong, I think the price was £650. That was the bottom tier. That was your first investment.
Yeah, and he'd done the deal with Co-op.
Yeah.
They would fund that. You know what I mean? So that actually done it, made it easy to buy, didn't he?
Easy to
Made
buy.
it easy for people.
At that age, I'm looking at my £10 a week paper round money, Lawrence, and I couldn't afford it. I wish I had, but I couldn't afford it at the time. A bit like Duncan last week. But so many people did. And so many people came in at that entry level, right? And it's those people, right, whose share issue and all the rest of it, and the certificate, they've moved house, they've maybe even passed away, they've maybe been divorced, and this share certificate needs to be updated. Now, the estimation from David Lowe, Ian, right, and I know you know David, and anybody who's followed Celtic will know his involvement in Fergus's takeover. The estimation from David is that up to 20% of the Celtic shareholding are people like that. People like me, whose dream was to be a Celtic shareholder, but you needed to find £650. There was a story that was told, and I think it was Hugh McDonald that told this story. People were going into Celtic Park, literally with big buckets of coppers and everything, counting the money out and buying £600 worth of shares at that time. Savings, going into post office accounts and drawing money out and buying the shares to save Celtic and help rebuild this football club. A lot of these shares, though, Ian, are now untraced. Now, on their own, you don't have a voice. Collectively, 20%, you've got a massive voice, you've then got an influence. And that's one of the big things that the Trust are trying to push tonight. And at the moment, I've not heard a better alternative, Ian, in relation to getting a voice back for the fan base.
No, I think it's a really good idea. And I've heard David speak on a few different podcasts. I've got a lot of time for David. He's a great guy, and he loves Celtic, and he does things the right way. I'm not trying to sound like a mouthpiece for him at all. I've not spoken to David about it, but as I say, I've just seen and heard on sort of various different platforms, and I think it's a really good approach. I think it's a really good approach to sort of try and uncover where these sort of missing shares are, and then if we can, as I say, that the lone voice is you're kind of shouting into the wind, but when you combine them, it builds strength and power to influence, and that's what we need at this moment. And sadly, it takes with this still needed to happen anyway, but it takes sort of arduous times for us to sort of actually sit up and take notice. And think, well, these things are necessary to happen. So I think with David Lowe and sort of the team that he would assemble, I think it's in the right hands to do things with the best endeavour for the fans and for Celtic by a whole. Like he said before, he's not against the side. He's not trying to make trouble for Celtic. Not in the slightest. I think he's trying to just amalgamate and just see where we're at, in terms of these mission shares and use it to good.
The big thing with this is that people think, well, why would I give you my shares? Nobody's asking anyone to give the Trust your shares. What happens is you can sign not the share over, but you can sign the rights over, so that in terms of the accumulative shares, if we're looking to try and get 5%, let's say, right, because if you've got 5%, you can call an EGM. You can then sit in a room with these guys and actually hold them to task, because they'll never come out and speak to us as normal football fans. But with 5% of a shareholding, you can do that. With 20%, when you compare 20% plus what they've already got, plus whatever else they're able to accumulate through their own business contacts, you're then looking at 34.7. That's what Dermot Desmond's got, 34.7. And I made this point the other day to someone I spoke to at Barazat Design, season ticket holder for 15 years. A lot of people have been sharing their own history of being a season ticket holder. If you've been a season ticket holder for 15 years, you've invested more money in the last 15 years in Celtic Football Club than Michael Nicholson, Peter Lawwell and Dermot Desmond combined. So I think the fans deserve to have a voice. Circle of Pain 666. That's a good start. We have made several... Are they a band or something? Are they a band? Remind me never to check on YouTube. We have made several signings, but only two. Can see only two being used potentially. And this is the thing as well. I don't think Brendan Rodgers has an obligation to play players that he doesn't rate. John McDonnell, aka Carol Jungle Boy, for Celtics fans, is how can we force change short term, other than boycotting Europa League? I don't see an obvious solution. Long term, increasing fans say via Celtic Trust shares is a must. Liam, I'm going to ask you. You have a history within journalism. You're now Acsom's full-time blogger. You write about Celtic on a daily basis. You don't get the opportunity to attend press conferences that often you have done in the past. I think you shocked everybody by speaking to some of our Japanese signings in Japanese to the point where go and start speaking English so we can understand. However, if you're sitting in the next press conference with Brendan Rodgers, what do you ask him? What do you ask Brendan?
The thing is, there's a lot of stuff I would like to know, but Brendan's not the man to give me the answers. So there's little point in asking him anything about what's going on behind the scenes, because it's clear he's been told, you stay on message. And as a journalist, I'm not interested in hearing people who are staying on message. I want to hear from people who are going to tell me what's actually going on. I would, with the greatest of respect, sit there, listen to what Brendan Rodgers has got to say, take my notes, but if it's any question relating to how do we fix what's going on with Celtic right now, he's not the man to ask, because he does not have the power to try and change anything. I think he was trying to kind of make a power play a couple of weeks ago when he started saying what he was saying, and I think we all agreed with him. But ultimately, in that particular battle of wills, yesterday shows the board won.
The board won. Absolutely.
That's the reality.
Yeah, he lost the transfer window, didn't he? Michael McDonald, welcome back, long-time contributor on Acsom's chat. The alternative to the status quo is we take a risk by spending a lot more. If we do that, even being successful means losing money. Concentrating and investing in scouting players is our best option. The way I looked at it, Michael, was that during that period where we didn't have the buffer, and I know Lawrence, you've said this in the past, apparently Paul Tisdale is Brendan's man, but he is a buffer nonetheless. He is going to the people to sign off deals, etc. And Matt Lowell had the same role, and Matt Lowell did leave. He did leave. He wasn't sacked. He left of his own volition. But in that period of time where we didn't have that buffer, Brendan Rodgers presumably was going straight to the main men himself, and he got deals done. He got 3 big deals done. Now, people will say, oh, we overspent on this one and that one. Well, Adam Ida's worth 7 million quid. So we only spent we've only spent £1.5 million more for Adam Ida, Lawrence.
Probably a loan fee. He won us a cup.
Yeah, he won us a cup.
One goals in the league.
Yeah, absolutely.
His Champions League goals nearly paid that difference.
And we move on.
4 and 8, was it?
Well, last season, he
10.
scores 2 against Villa, 1 against Slovan Bratislava, and he forces the young boys. So, he gets 3, but you're right. I'd credit him for doing as much as anybody to get that goal against young boys. My point being, though, that's all I expected in the summer. I thought to myself, right, go out and do that again. Go out and spend 30 again. Now, had we done that, right, had we gone out and spent 30 million quid, where would that have left us financially, right? So, Nicholas Kuhn, what was he, 17 million, there or thereabouts, right? Gustav Lagerberg, 2. So there's 19 million pound. Marco Tilio, 1.3. 20 million quid plus. 20 million pound. Jeremy Frimpong, sell on 5.5. 25.5 million quid. Ben Doak, 1 million pound sell on. 26.5 million pound. 7 million pound for Adam Ida. So if you'd gone out and spent 30 million pound on 3 players, you still wouldn't have spent any money net, Lawrence. If you're ring fencing the money. So why didn't we go and do that?
Mate, because there's people at the club don't want Brendan Rodgers there. And Liam said Brendan can't fix it. But I bet you Liam would ask him, what do you mean by that, Brendan? Who are you talking about? It's an open goal if a journalist really wants a story. Who are you talking about, Brendan? Do you mean Michael Nicholson? Do you mean Peter Lowell? Who do you mean? The
That's
fact that we weren't asked, you've got to wonder what role the journalists were playing. The fact they didn't ask that.
Well, most journalists will say that though because they're scared of not getting their access.
It's all about access, isn't it? It's about access. Now, what would happen right now if Celtic turned out to me and said, right, Acsom no longer has access to press conferences? It wouldn't make a blind bit of difference to Acsom. Wouldn't make a blind bit of difference to Acsom because of the way that press conferences are set up. We don't attend everyone. We're on a rota system. You sometimes get pre-match, you sometimes get post-match, right? And then what happens is, let's say there are 10 different platforms in that room. Everybody gets the same content. So it's no use to us. By the time we get to Dunfermline and upload it, it's already out there. It's not bespoke. So it's not content that we need. We do it because we want to be able to influence the the way that we ask questions, the angles that we take. And I think the people who have attended these press conferences on behalf of and representing Acsom have done amazingly well. But you're limited. You really are limited as to what you can ask, because the last time we went up there, I think it was James Forrest they put in front. You're not going to ask James Forrest about what's happening in the inner workings of Celtic Football Club. Absolutely. So you're in a position where you don't tend to get the information, but there's going to be, I think, fireworks in the next press conference for sure. Odin Viking God 88, there's another band name for you. £20 you've thrown into the Acsom pot. Thanks for supporting the channel. Afternoon, chaps, some same. There must be change. I am astounded, but not really surprised at the lack of activity in a recent transfer window. Hail, hail to all of our supporters, and a big cheers from Cyprus. Thank you very much. By the way, I think we have a Charlton Athletic fan in, Len Dog. Stop looking down at Charlton Championship Club in London, nice stadium. Come on, lads, stop taking digs at us. Apologies, Len Dog. It's nothing personal. That's all I'm going to say. I mean,
just business.
My wife's paternal grandfather was a Charlton fan, so yeah.
Aye, it's definitely not anything personal. I'm now trying to think of Charlton links. Charlton links. Paulo Di Canio. There's a Charlton link.
The who played a gig there?
The who played at Charlton as well as Celtic Trust.
Charlton, in the 70s, aye.
Stuart Balmer, he played for Celtic and Charlton. There'll be others. Owen Archdeacon, no, it was Barnsley. Right, there we go. North Korea CSC. Jen Miller. Yeah, aye, absolutely. Give up your HCTS, your Home Cup ticket scheme. Don't buy any more tickets. Don't buy away tickets. Don't buy merch. And all people with shares, transfer them to the trust. And again, with regards to the shares, you're not losing your share. The share still belongs to you. The trust is
just the voting rights.
Aye, they're acting as a proxy. Absolutely. Yeah. They're combining it. Actually. And by the way, don't you think Desmond's doing that with other shareholders at Celtic?
And if you're not using your voting rights, what does it matter to you transfer? You've got to realise change is needed. Listen, what do you think Keane and Trainer are thinking? What have they got, 10 and 5%? What do you think those guys are thinking?
I know.
They're sitting there, and they're guilty by association with a sport.
Yeah.
It's not the legacy they want.
No. This is the thing, Lawrence, legacy, right? Let's talk about legacy for a moment. At any point in Celtic's history, when you look at the illustrious history and you look at all the incredible things that this club has achieved, does anybody talk about the chairman or the CEO or the guy with most shares that made the club most money? Is that a legacy? Is that their legacy, Lawrence? Is that what they want? Because they had an opportunity this season to push on to have a European legacy.
Do you improve the club? Are you leaving it in a better situation than you found it? We're a football club, and it's football-wise where we improve, not balance sheet. Does it matter? If we had 90 million, we've now got 110 in the bank. Who cares? I care we can't put a striker, first-choice striker in the park for a manager.
Yep.
Well, here's the thing.
The Champions League, we get embarrassed. We're a team that just sat back and said, we know you don't have good enough attacking players to break us down.
Yeah,
your manager's been on record all summer saying that. So, their game plan was going to be a secret. We've got a manager practically begging for players, attacking players, wingers and strikers, because we need to win games of football. And the board failed to deliver.
Yeah, on you go, Ian.
See about sorry, Lawrence, to interrupt there. I didn't mean to. I thought you'd finished. So, in terms of the legacy and things like that, you shouldn't get to mark your own homework. In big business again, you have an audit system, and standards. So you can't mark your own homework. They're of course going to say, look at our legacy. Look what we've done. They've done great stuff. But if you actually drill into the detail, albeit looks like
the Celtic board have jumped in and hacked in stream.
An audit. Can you still hear me?
I can still hear you, mate.
Aye, you're back now.
So it's you actually drill into the detail and you see the deficiencies and where we could have improved and where we should have improved. And that's not the big picture might convey one sort of message, and of course they're going to shout about that from the rooftops. But if you drill into it, as I'm sure any audit would do, over X amount of years, 10, 15 years, you'll see the deficiencies and you'll see the malpractice, the things that should have been done that weren't done.
I'm going to ask one final question.
On there, on an audit, we've got a feedback loop from the last 5, 6, 7 managers, all criticising the way we do transfer. What more do they want? the guys that run the football side and know football are telling you you're not doing it right.
You're not doing the football side it right. I'm just going to ask everybody one final question before we leave you for the rest of this afternoon. Who should walk, Liam Carrigan? Who should lose the role at this football club after the omni-shambles of a transfer window, where we're now facing Europa League football with a squad that might not even be strong enough for that? Who do you think has to bear the brunt of that? Liam, I'll ask you first.
Well, you have to cut the head off the serpent or it will keep coming back. So it's got to be Dermot Desmond.
Dermot Desmond to blame. Lawrence?
So I think Nicholson and Law need to go. The whole board need to go. We lost 40 million quid for not qualifying for the Champions League. Surely they had an emergency board meeting and said, this is because we didn't get players in. Get them in. And they failed it second time. This isn't the first time they failed. They managed to fail twice this transfer window. They had the warning to get out of the Champions League and still couldn't bring themselves to sign the players the manager wanted. Desmond, how do we get him out? He's got 34%, and obviously Linsdale Train have got another 17% taken into the manager's 51%. Are the two connected? Liam's right. It needs to be investigated. If they are, has it been done legally? Because if he controls 51%, should he have made an offer for the whole shareholding?
Normally, yeah.
What's going on? What is the corporate structure? Why aren't deals getting done? The board, Nicholson, Law all need to go. Turn back to Don Mackay, find out what he's up to. There was a guy that could get deals done when he was in the door for the few months he was in.
Just the clock's ticking until that NDA expires, and then obviously we'll ask him back on. Ian, head should roll, absolutely, but whose head will roll? Because I'm now looking at it thinking to myself, well, Brendan Rodgers even last this season, I'm not so sure. Whose head should roll in your view?
Well, I've said it earlier on, Mr. Desmond, I thank you for everything you've done for Celtic. You've done wonderful, great things, create some great times and stuff like that. But if you really care about Celtic, if you really, really love Celtic, you need to manfully stand to the side or stand down, and therefore the rest of your board goes. But yeah, Dermot Desmond I think he's run his course. He's taken Celtic as far as he can or wants to take them, and I think it's Dermot Desmond. I hope that his love of Celtic would show him that it's time to let someone else take the reins and move forward and take the rest of them with you.
Yeah, I mean, we'll cover every single development as we move through this season, and for every season thereafter. Thanks everybody for getting involved. 5,500. Many of you are as frustrated as we are, but we do thank you for your support. Keep the comments coming in. Whose head should roll? Let us know in the comments section, and join us again tomorrow at 12:30 on A Celtic State of Mind.